In the later portion of Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo's four-day trip to Beijing and Shanghai, Huawei Technologies Co. stealthily introduced a new phone dubbed the Mate 60 Pro on August 29, 2023. The trip was scheduled to take place in Beijing and Shanghai. A bombshell teardown of the Mate 60 Pro revealed that it was powered by a Kirin 9000 semiconductor chip that was manufactured in China by Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation. This meant that China is able to produce 7-nanometer chips in spite of restrictions imposed by the United States, and possibly on a massive scale. Despite the fact that the Mate 60 Pro was introduced in a relatively unremarkable manner, it went on to dominate the American news cycle the following week. A great number of people in Washington came to the conclusion that the United States' efforts to restrict China's semiconductor development were fruitless as a result of this scientific achievement, which caused widespread alarm. In point of fact, however, the significance of the breakthrough made by Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation was considerably exaggerated. China was already well on its way to the manufacturing of 7-nanometer chips. It is more likely that the breakthrough with Huawei will help to recalibrate the approach taken by the Biden administration going ahead than it will be to discredit it overall. The small yard, high fence technique that is now being used is successful, yet it is not 100% foolproof. It is expected that China would continue its attempts to become self-sufficient in the production of semiconductors. There is the potential for its supply chain for semiconductors to undergo reorganization over time, which might result in choke points in nations other than the United States, including China and its allies. In order to achieve victory in the chip war with China, it is necessary to maintain a dominant position in advanced semiconductors, which are chips with a size of 8 nanometers or less, and to reduce reliance on Chinese legacy chips, which are devices with a size of 28 nanometers or bigger. Moreover, the United States government must keep an eye on China's increasing competitiveness in the legacy chip industry and formulate a response to it. Furthermore, in the event that policymakers make the decision to further tighten chip restrictions in the near future, they should make certain that these measures do not pose a threat to the success of American semiconductor companies. What were the factors that led to China's breakthrough? In October of 2022, the government of President Joe Biden in the United States imposed comprehensive export controls on China. These limitations prohibited the sale of specific advanced semiconductor chips, as well as the complex equipment that was required to make them, as well as semiconductor expertise from the United States. In order to prevent China from developing a semiconductor suite at the 14-nanometer level, the United States implemented export controls. Specifically, the regulations included a threshold of 14 nanometers for logic chips and permits for exports to 14 nanometer and sub-14 nanometer semiconductor fabrication units in China. This effectively prohibited the sale of any items or expertise from the United States to these facilities. On the other hand, this was an unattainable objective. To begin, Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation was able to reach its breakthrough of 7 nanometers months, if not an entire year, prior to the implementation of export curbs on China brought about by the administration of President Joe Biden. The Canadian semiconductor analysis Business Tech Insights came to the conclusion in a report that was published in July 2022 that the company has been able to manufacture chips with a 7-nanometer process since 2021. In addition, it was determined that they were able to speed up the transition from 14-nanometer chips to 7-nanometer chips in just 2 years, surpassing both Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company and Samsung in terms of technological advancement. Although this kind of leapfrogging is not very common, it is clearly conceivable. Liang Mongsong, who is currently serving as the co-CEO of Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation, was once employed as an executive at Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, which is the largest contract maker of semiconductor chips in the world. Under those circumstances, Liang was deemed to be responsible for leaking secrets to Samsung, including the technology behind the 28-nanometer process. Tech Insights stated in their study from July 2022 that there are many similarities in process technologies, designs, and innovations between Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation's 7M and TSMC's 7M. This statement is a confirmation of the aforementioned statement. In general, semiconductor companies have the option of employing either extreme ultraviolet lithography machines or deep ultraviolet lithography machines in order to accomplish the fabrication of chips with a sub-10 nanometer resolution. The most advanced of these devices is the extreme ultraviolet lithography machine, which is also the most expensive of these equipment while also being exceedingly smart. The market for these technologies is likewise highly consolidated. Advanced Semiconductor Materials Lithography, a Dutch chip manufacturing equipment company, has a monopoly over extreme ultraviolet lithography machines and a near monopoly over deep ultraviolet lithography machines. Both of these machines are used for lithography. Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation was able to create its 7 nanometer chips by utilizing chip-making equipment that was imported from other countries. On the other hand, since December 2020, when it was added to the United States Entity List, the corporation has been restricted from importing machines that use severe ultraviolet lithography. Rather of relying on more modern deep ultraviolet lithography machines, it was obliged to rely on less advanced machines in order to achieve its breakthrough. The importation of deep ultraviolet lithography machines from other countries does not constitute a violation of the existing export regulations in the United States. The United States of America, Japan, and the Netherlands came to an agreement in late January 2023 to ban the shipment of advanced chip manufacturing equipment to China. However, the actual execution of this agreement did not take place until many months later. The Netherlands' new export control regulations were announced in September 2023 and will not take effect until January 1, 2024, which is almost a full year after the initial agreement was signed. On the other hand, Japan's new export control rules were issued in May 2023 and went into effect in July 2023. Therefore, in order to manufacture the 7 nanometer Kirin 9000 chips for Huawei Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation had the option of either using foreign deep ultraviolet lithography machines that were legally obtained prior to the October 2022 export controls, also known as a stockpile scenario, or manufacturing the chips in the 9 to 10 months that followed the controls in accordance with new export controls in Japan and the Netherlands, respectively. A victory for the United States of America, not China. In light of the fact that Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation was capable of producing 7 nanometer chips in 2022, if not 2021, with less sophisticated equipment, it was an unrealistic assumption to assume that the implementation of export controls, especially export controls that were initially uncoordinated with allies, could result in the company's technological regression. Rather than judging China's domestic achievements in semiconductor manufacture based on how well they adhere to the purpose of U.S. export regulations, we should evaluate them based on how successfully they are hampered. When measured against these standards, the introduction of the Huawei Mate 60 Pro smartphone cannot be regarded as an outstanding victory for China. It is quite unlikely that Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation will be able to mass-produce 7 nanometer chips, despite the fact that the company absolutely possesses the capability to manufacture these devices. This is demonstrated by the fact that the Mate 60 Pro can be purchased. It appears that the phone was only available in restricted quantities, which suggests that there was a limited inventory despite the fact that it was sold out practically quickly. Analysts at Jefferies believe that Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation is only capable of producing a very small volume of 7 nanometer chips, and that Huawei may be powering some Mate 60 Pros using chips that were stored by Taiwan's Semiconductor Manufacturing Company before to the implementation of export controls in the United States in 2022. The incorporation of these chips that have been accumulated is unquestionably feasible. The Mate 60 Pro was reportedly equipped with NAND flash memory chips manufactured by SK Hynix, a South Korean chipmaker that had previously halted chip deliveries to Huawei following the imposition of sanctions by the United States. This information was reported by several early users of the Mate 60 Pro. In the meantime, SK Hynix has initiated an investigation into the utilization of their semiconductors in the recently released Huawei phone. Analysts are currently attempting to gain an understanding of the yield, or efficiency, of China's 7-nanometer chip production in relation to the chips that Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation did manufacture. Taking into consideration the fact that the 7-nanometer chips that TechInsights analysts have evaluated are in good condition, some research firms anticipate that the manufacturing process yield rate of the company will be below 50%, while TechInsights analysts predict that it will be above 50%. Both yields, on the other hand, are extremely low when compared to the standard in the business, which is at least 90%. In light of the fact that China was able to make 7-nanometer chips prior to the implementation of export limitations by the United States, it may be deduced that Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation had the intention of increasing its 7-nanometer yield at the time that the controls were implemented. It is a victory for the United States of America, not for China, that there is evidence of even a slight progress in this area. In a nutshell, the development of Huawei's chips does not necessarily indicate that the export regulations of the United States are collapsing. Although the capacity of Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation to eventually scale up manufacturing to 7 nanometers was never guaranteed, it was always a possibility even though it was never guaranteed. Due to the fact that the co-CEO has a history of leaking trade secrets, and the fact that the company had relatively unrestricted access to chip-making equipment from Japan and the Netherlands for several months after the United States implemented export curbs in October 2022. This is especially true. Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation is focused on trying to scale production at 7 nanometers, and China has asked Raimondo to lift export limits. Instead of bemoaning the defeat of U.S. chip sanctions, lawmakers in the United States should be delighted with these developments. If, for instance, the corporation were to pursue the fabrication of chips with a 5-nanometer process today, the situation would be much more concerning. China is barred from obtaining extreme ultraviolet lithography machines from Advanced Semiconductor Materials Lithography, which is the only company in the world that manufactures these machines. This means that even if China is discreetly pursuing the creation of chips with a 5-nanometer process at the moment, it is almost likely impossible for China to make chips with a 3-nanometer process. That's where we wrap things up for the time being. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.